What exercises can you do to actually boost your testosterone? Not just maintain it, not just slow the decline. Actually move the needle, naturally, safely, and in a way that fits into a real man's real life after 45. That is exactly what we are covering today, and I promise you, this is not going to be another generic, go lift weights conversation. We are going deep into the biology, the specific movements that matter most, the mistakes that are silently working against your hormones, and the simple daily habits that can change everything. Starting this week, I'm Dr. Christine Rodriguez, and welcome back to Men's Vitality Hub. I work with men every single day who are frustrated. Men who are doing things right, eating reasonably well, showing up at the gym when they can, and still feeling like something is off. The energy isn't there, the drive has gone quiet. The muscle isn't coming back the way it used to. And more often than not, when we dig into the details, the problem isn't effort, it's strategy. So today, we're fixing the strategy. And I want you to stay with me through this entire video because toward the end, I'm going to share something about cortisol and workout length that most fitness channels will never tell you. And it could be the single reason your current exercise routine is actually working against your testosterone right now. Let's start with why exercise and testosterone are connected in the first place, because understanding the biology will help everything else click into place. Testosterone is produced primarily in the testes, and its production is regulated by a signaling chain that starts in the brain. Your hypothalamus releases a hormone that tells your pituitary gland to release luteinizing hormone, LH, and LH travels through the bloodstream to the testes where it triggers testosterone production. Now, exercise influences this entire system. When you challenge your muscles, when you place genuine progressive demand on your body, your hormonal system interprets that as a signal that you need to be stronger, more capable, more anabolically primed, and one of the key responses to that signal is an increase in testosterone output. But here is where it gets nuanced. The type of exercise, the duration, the intensity, and even the time of day you train all influence whether you get a hormonal boost or a hormonal crash. Not all movement is created equal when it comes to your endocrine system. The most well-established research-backed principle here is this. Compound, multi-joint movements that engage large muscle groups produce the greatest acute testosterone response. We're talking about movements like squats, deadlifts, rows, and presses. The reason is straightforward. The more muscle tissue you recruit in a single movement, the stronger the systemic hormonal signal. A bicep curl recruits a small isolated muscle group. A squat recruits your glutes, your hamstrings, your quadriceps, your core, your spinal stabilizers simultaneously. Your body reads that total body demand and responds accordingly. This is why the foundation of any testosterone supportive exercise program must be built around these big, compound patterns. Now, let's talk about squats specifically, because they deserve their own conversation, and because they are perhaps the most testosterone-friendly exercise that exists. Yet most men over 40 are either skipping them entirely or doing them in a way that limits their benefit. The squat is essentially a full lower body loading pattern. When you sink your hips below parallel and drive back up, you are engaging the largest muscles in your body under significant load. Studies have actually shown that men who squat to depth, breaking the parallel line with their hips, produce a measurably greater testosterone response compared to men doing partial range movements. But, and this is critical, depth should never come at the cost of technique. A deep squat with a rounded spine and collapsed knees sends a very different signal to your body. An injury signal, a cortisol signal, and cortisol is testosterone's direct hormonal enemy. So, here's what I tell every man who comes to me wanting to use squats as a hormonal tool. Start where your body actually is, not where you think it should be. If a comfortable, controlled squat brings your hips to just above parallel, that is your starting point. Do that well. Do it consistently. Over weeks and months, your mobility will improve, your depth will increase, and so will your hormonal response. There is a simple modification that dramatically helps men who struggle with squat depth, elevating your heels slightly on a wedge or even a weight plate. This shifts the demand, reduces the stress on your ankles and lower back, and allows you to get deeper safely. It's one of the most practical adjustments I've seen make an immediate difference for men over 45. Still with me? Good, because what I'm about to share about workout length and hormones is something most people get completely backwards. Here is the mistake I see constantly. Men who want to boost their testosterone decide to go harder and longer at the gym. 2-hour sessions, back-to-back days. Maximum effort every single time, and their testosterone actually declines. Why? Because of cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Your body produces it whenever it perceives that it is under threat, whether that threat is a work deadline, a sleepless night, or an excessively long and grueling workout. And cortisol and testosterone have a direct inverse relationship. When cortisol rises, testosterone falls. It's a hormonal seesaw and prolonged. High-intensity exercise pushes hard on the cortisol side. Workouts that extend beyond 60 to 75 minutes of high effort tend to cross a threshold where the cortisol cost begins to outweigh the testosterone benefit. The solution is not to work less hard, it's to work more intelligently. Shorter, focused sessions that still challenge your body meaningfully will protect your hormonal environment far better than marathon gym sessions that leave you feeling depleted. 20 to 30 minutes of real, quality effort is often more hormonally productive than 90 minutes of mixed-intensity, unfocused training. This is why something that might seem unconventional is actually brilliant from a hormonal standpoint, breaking your movement throughout the day into shorter bursts rather than consolidating everything into one long session. Imagine picking up a sandbag vigorously for 30 seconds, twice in the morning, taking a set of bodyweight squats at lunch, doing a few rows with a resistance band in the evening. Each of these brief bouts sends a positive muscle stress signal without triggering the sustained cortisol spike that comes from prolonged training, and those signals accumulate. Over time, your body is receiving consistent input that it needs to stay strong and hormonally primed. This approach, movement sprinkled throughout the day, is not just practical for busy men, it may actually be superior for testosterone support. Let's talk about a category of training that almost never appears in testosterone conversations but absolutely should: rotational and functional movement. Most gym training happens in what we call the sagittal plane, forward and back. Deadlifts, bench press, squats, rows, all forward and back. But your body is designed to rotate. Your spine is built for it. Your hips are built for it, and when you never train rotation, you develop significant movement imbalances that lead to stiffness, compensations, and eventually injury, which takes you out of training entirely and sends your testosterone into free fall. Rope flow training, medicine ball rotational throws, and twisting loaded carries are all ways to train rotational movement that your body is craving. These exercises look unconventional. They feel almost like play, but they are engaging your spine, your deep core stabilizers, your hip rotators, and they are doing it in a way that keeps your joints fluid, your movement efficient, and your ability to train consistently protected for the long term. For men over 45, longevity in training is everything. A man who trains 3 days a week for 10 years will always outperform, hormonally and physically, a man who trains intensely for 3 months and then gets hurt and stops. Now let's bring in one of the most overlooked drivers of testosterone decline in active men: lower back dysfunction. Lower back pain and injury are epidemic among men in their 40s and 50s, and the irony is that most of it is preventable, and much of it is reversible. Through targeted strengthening, when your lower back is weak or your posterior chain is underdeveloped, your body compensates. You avoid certain movements, you protect the area, you sit more, you move less. And every one of those compensations creates a cascade that reduces your overall physical output, reduces muscle mass, reduces caloric demand, potentially increases body fat, and steadily suppresses testosterone. Strengthening the posterior chain, your glutes, hamstrings, and spinal erectors, is one of the most direct hormonal investments you can make. Deadlift variations, hip hinges, sandbag carries, sled pushes, these are all posterior chain movements that also happen to be the most testosterone-stimulating exercises available. A simple hip hinge with a sandbag, bending at the waist, loading through the posterior chain, driving the hips through at the top, hits the glutes, the hamstrings, and the lower back in a way that sends a powerful hormonal signal. Add a hip drive and a glute squeeze at the top of the movement, and you have engaged the largest muscle group in the human body, the gluteus maximus, which is one of the most hormonally responsive muscles there is. One training technique worth understanding, not because it's complicated, but because it works, is the concept of time under tension. Your muscles don't just count reps, they respond to how long they are under load. A rep performed slowly and with control, where the muscle is under tension for 3 to 4 seconds, produces a significantly different physiological signal than a rep performed quickly. When you introduce deliberate pauses at different points in a movement, a 1-second pause on the first 4 reps, a 2-second pause on the next 4, and then continuous reps for the final 4, you're teaching your nervous system to recruit muscle fibers more efficiently, you're building a stronger mind-muscle connection, and you're maximizing the anabolic signal from every single repetition. This approach also protects your joints because slower, more controlled movement reduces the momentum and impact that cause joint stress. For men who have been told to be careful with weights because of their age, this is the answer. Not less loading, but smarter loading. Let's talk about what happens outside the gym because exercise alone is never the complete picture. The hormonal benefits of your training can be amplified or completely erased by what surrounds it. Sleep sits at the very top of that list. The majority of your daily testosterone production occurs during sleep, particularly during deep slow-wave sleep in the second half of the night. Men who consistently sleep fewer than 6 hours show measurably lower testosterone levels within just a few days. This is not a long-term trend. This is a rapid physiological response. If you're training hard and sleeping poorly, you're quite literally defeating yourself. And one of the simplest environmental signals you can use to support sleep quality is morning sunlight exposure. Getting natural light into your eyes within 30 to 60 minutes of waking helps anchor your circadian rhythm, improve your sleep architecture at night, and support the cortisol awakening response that sets your hormonal tone for the entire day. Even 2 minutes of outdoor light in the morning is not nothing. It's a genuine biological signal. Nutrition deserves a clear, direct word here as well. You do not need a complicated diet protocol to support your testosterone through exercise. What you need, fundamentally, is adequate protein to support the muscle repair that training demands, a reduction in the ultra-processed hyperpalatable foods that drive fat accumulation and insulin resistance, both of which suppress testosterone, and enough total calories to fuel your training without chronically undereating, which is another significant suppressor of hormonal output. Men who undereat while training hard are sending their bodies a famine signal, and a body under famine conditions does not prioritize reproductive hormones. It prioritizes survival. Testosterone gets sacrificed. The goal is not perfection. 80% consistency over months is infinitely more hormonally valuable than one perfect week followed by collapse. Let me also address something that comes up in my clinic more than almost any other topic: men who feel overwhelmed before they even start. They look at all of this, the compound lifts, the rotational training, the nutrition, the sleep hygiene, and they shut down. It feels like too much. And I want to speak directly to that feeling right now because it is real, and it is valid. You do not have to implement everything at once. In fact, trying to change everything simultaneously is one of the most reliable ways to change nothing long-term. Start with one thing, one anchor habit that you commit to for 30 days before you add anything else. For most men, I recommend starting with a walk, 20 to 30 minutes outdoors if possible, every single day. It sounds almost too simple to matter hormonally, but it does matter. Walking reduces cortisol. It exposes you to natural light, which supports circadian rhythm and sleep quality. It gets blood moving through your tissues. It builds the psychological identity of being someone who moves their body daily, and that identity is the foundation everything else gets built on. Once the walk is automatic, you add resistance training. Once resistance training is a habit, you refine your nutrition. Step by step, layer by layer. That is how lasting change is built, not in a single motivated burst, but in small repeated choices that accumulate into a completely different hormonal reality over time. And finally, perhaps the most important piece of advice I can give you, find movement that you will actually keep doing. The best exercise for your testosterone is the one you show up for consistently, not the one that is theoretically optimal on paper, not the one that looks impressive, the one you enjoy enough to do repeatedly, week after week, year after year. Walk with a friend in the evenings. Take the stairs, push a sled if you have access to one. Do bodyweight squats in your living room. Throw a medicine ball if that feels alive and fun. Swing a rope if that challenges you in a new way. The body does not care about the aesthetic of the movement. It responds to the consistency of the stimulus. And for men over 45, consistency is the most powerful training variable of all. The body you want starts with the habit you protect every single day. If today's video gave you a clearer picture of how to use exercise as a genuine hormonal tool, not just for how you look, but for how you feel, how you think, how you move, and how long you do all of it, please hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps Men's Vitality Hub reach more men who need this information when they need it most. And if you haven't subscribed yet, join us because every week we bring you honest, evidence-based conversations about testosterone, prostate health, longevity, and everything that keeps men thriving past 45.